Okay, let's picture this. A world of just incredible wealth and speed. Think billion-dollar car deals, right?
Yeah, and showrooms that are less like dealerships and more like, I don't know, modern art galleries.
Exactly. And the clients. Global icons, literally. It's a scene most of us, only ever see on TV or in movies.
But the question is, how does someone break into that world? And not just break in, but absolutely dominate it, become known as, well, probably the best there is.
What if that person started with, like, almost nothing? No advantages, really.
Well, that's the story we're digging into today. We're exploring the world of Tom Hartley, a name that really carries weight in the ultra-luxury car market.
He's often called the world's top supercar dealer, isn't he?
He is. And his journey is just, well, it's something else. From being a middle school dropout to personally selling, get this, over $5 billion worth of cars.
5 billion with a B. That number is just hard to wrap your head around.
It really is.
It is.
And our source for this deep dive is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a transcript from a YouTube conversation where Tom Hartley himself just sits down and lays it all out.
The whole story, highs, lows, everything.
Pretty much his philosophy, the big moments, the really tough times too.
Okay, so our mission here is to get past the big number, the headlines. We want to really unpack this source, right?
Exactly. Pull out the surprising bits, understand those key turning points, and really try to grasp the mindset.
Yeah.
What drove him from such humble beginnings to the very top of this incredibly niche, high-stakes world.
And maybe see what lessons are in there for, well, for you listening.
Definitely. Okay, let's get into it.
So you hear billion-dollar supercar dealer, and the first image probably isn't a kid who really struggled in school.
No, not at all. But the source makes it clear that's exactly where Tom Hartley started. He says he was called a dunce, and incredibly, couldn't even read at that age. Yeah, and there's this one detail that really hits home. A teacher, he names her, Mrs. McDonald, apparently told him straight up he would struggle in life.
Oof. That's heavy for a kid.
It really is.
Yeah.
Imagine being told that. It just paints this picture of, how much he had to overcome right from the start.
To be basically written off before you've even begun. Yet, despite all that, the source says he had this really strong ambition, even back then.
Oh, absolutely. Like an innate thing. He just had this dream, this powerful desire to be the most famous, the best at whatever it was he ended up doing.
So that drive wasn't really connected to school success?
Not in the slightest.
Yeah.
And it started showing up outside the classroom. He began skipping school, apparently.
Okay. And doing what instead?
Watching car auctions.
Yeah.
A friend of his dad's who ran a taxi business used to take him along, and he just got fascinated by it all.
Yeah.
How cars were bought, how they were sold, the whole process.
Right, the mechanics of the deal.
Exactly. And that fascination, it led to his very first deal.
Yeah.
Which, according to the source, happened just before he turned 12.
12. He did a car deal before he was 12.
Yep, his first one.
Mm-hmm.
Bought a 1971 Range Rover for 1950 pounds from a guy named Billy Barty.
Okay, how did he even manage that?
Well, this is the clever part. He knew a relative desperately wanted that specific model, couldn't get one anywhere. Supply and demand, right?
So at like 11 and a half, he spotted a market inefficiency.
Kind of incredible, isn't it? He just put the deal together, made a 250-pound profit, and as he points out himself, that was a lot of money back in 1971.
I'll bet it was. So his real education was happening outside of school, just spotting opportunities.
That seems to be exactly it. That first little win, that taste of success.
Especially after being told he'd struggle. That must have been huge.
Absolutely. And it looks like it really lit a fire under him. He talks about being in a rush, wanting to get ahead fast in life and business, no patience for waiting around.
And being in a rush sometimes means, well, maybe not following all the rules.
Yeah, he's quite open about that in the source. Admits to breaking rules, talks about driving on the road when he was only 14.
Driving at 14? What was he driving?
A Rolls Royce, apparently.
No way. How did he get away with that?
He kind of laughs about it, says police checks were just different back in the 70s. You could often just give a fake name and address, and that was that. He found ways around the system.
Okay, so a bit of youthful rebellion, but it sounds like this willingness to find unconventional paths led to something much bigger.
It really did. Around age 17, so just before he could legally drive, he stumbled onto what he calls an unbelievable loophole, something to do with importing cars.
A loophole? What kind?
It was all about the exchange rate. Back then, it was something like 4.5 Deutschmarks to 1 British pound. Hugely favorable.
Okay, so how did that create a loophole?
It meant he could buy brand new cars right from the factories in Germany, Mercedes, BMW, Porsche, and then sell them directly to dealers back in the UK. He was cutting out the official importers entirely.
Wow. So he was basically setting himself up as his own gray market importer, undercutting the whole established system.
That's pretty much it. And he didn't just dabble. He scaled it up fast. At the peak, he says he was bringing in 10, maybe 15 cars every week.
15 cars a week. As a teenager, the logistics alone.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it? The risk, the capital involved, the sheer nerve of it for someone that young.
No wonder the source says this whole operation, this loophole, made him a millionaire before he was even 20.
Yeah. I mean, think about that jump. School dropout, couldn't read, told he'd struggle, to teenage millionaire. It's almost unbelievable.
A testament to seeing an opportunity nobody else did, or maybe just having the guts to go for it.
Definitely the guts. He was an entrepreneur in the purest sense, willing to take that big swing.
So, okay. First million banked, still a teenager, absolutely flying high. Story over, happy ending, right?
Ah, well, you'd think so.
Yeah.
But the source reveals that what happened next was just a crash. Sudden, devastating. He literally says things just went crash. His whole world turned upside down.
Whoa, what happened? Did he blow the money? Bad investments.
That's what's so interesting. He's very clear he didn't lose it gambling or being stupid with it.
Okay.
He says it was lost because of a technicality brought out because of my success.
Okay, a technicality because of his success. What does that actually mean?
Basically, the big car manufacturers, BMW, Mercedes, Porsche, they noticed this young kid disrupting their carefully controlled UK market in a big way.
They didn't like him undercutting their official channels, I suppose.
Exactly. So as he tells it, they essentially got together on this young kid. They brought in a new rule, seemingly simple. Dealers could now only sell one car per person.
One car per person. How did that crash his business?
Because his entire model relied on volume. He had huge deposits down on multiple cars from the factories, expecting to flip them quickly through the dealers. This new rule basically froze his capital overnight, tied up massive amounts of cash and deposits he couldn't easily use.
So the very companies whose cars he was successfully selling essentially pulled the rug out from under him because he was too good at it.
That's how he frames it. He felt totally overwhelmed. I mean, how do you fight these giant corporations as a teenager?
You can't, really.
Right. So he faced this choice, tried to pull his deposits, maybe salvage some money, but destroy his reputation with the dealers he'd left hanging. Or stand the pain of loss, honor the commitments, take the financial hit, but keep his name intact.
And he chose his reputation.
He did. Lost pretty much everything he'd made.
Choosing your name over the money, especially when you're facing ruin, that's a big call. Shows long-term thinking, maybe?
I think so.
Yeah.
But the immediate impact was brutal. He really hit rock bottom. The source says he and his wife ended up back living in a caravan.
From millionaire importing Porsches to a caravan, that's a fall.
A massive fall. Must have been just incredibly crushing. A real test of character, right?
Absolutely. So what then? How do you come back from that?
Well, this is where the resilience really kicks in. He gives huge credit to his wife. Says she just told him, you did it once, you can do it all again. Unwavering support.
That must have meant everything.
For sure. And he says he went back to the drawing board. But that didn't mean fancy strategy sessions. It meant him, personally, doing everything again.
Like what?
Collecting cars, delivering cars, washing them, polishing them by hand, back to square one. The absolute grunt work.
Just like when he started spotting that Range Rover, getting his hands dirty.
Precisely. They just started rebuilding. Slowly, patiently, rebuilding the business, rebuilding the name, car by car, deal by deal.
And he learned something crucial from that whole experience, didn't he?
He did. He said something really powerful. He forgot the pain, but he remembered the lesson. That whole devastating experience, losing it all, it actually made him stronger.
How so?
He knew he'd already been to the top once. So getting back there the second time, while hard, felt achievable. He knew what it tasted like. He used this great analogy.
Yeah.
He compares it to tasting honey versus summer milk. Once you taste the honey, you know what you're aiming for again. That first million was like tasting summer milk, maybe nice, but not unforgettable. The second time, he knew the sweetness of the honey.
That's a fantastic way to put it. That ability to learn, not just suffer. That feels like the core of it, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It seems fundamental to how he operates and why he succeeded long term. And the scale of what he's built this time. It's just staggering.
So what does the empire look like today?
Well, the source estimates his car business alone, and he has other ventures like Park Homes and Holiday Parks is worth well over 300 million pounds.
Just the car business? Wow.
Yeah. And the value of the cars they have in stock at any one time, usually somewhere between 40 million and 100 million pounds.
And it's still a family business, not some huge corporation.
That's right, independent, family run, which makes its scale even more impressive.
And the place itself, the headquarters.
Oh, it's extraordinary. He talks about this purpose-built complex that cost 10 million pounds to build.
10 million? And didn't he mention something about the bricks?
He did. Said they use these handmade bricks that cost 2 pounds a brick. Just that little detail tells you about the level of quality, the investment, no expense spared.
What else? What's inside?
State-of-the-art everything.
Yeah.
A 300,000 pounds latest tech system, a massive car lift that costs nearly 300,000 pounds. Italian marble floors, sophisticated climate control, sound systems. It's designed to be breathtaking.
More than just a place to sell cars.
Definitely a statement piece. And then there are the really unique touches he's famous for. Like you can stand on a glass floor and look down at the cars stored in the basement level.
See the underneath of these supercars.
Exactly. He insists the undersides are as perfect as the tops. It's about total transparency, showing off the absolute pristine condition.
And the most famous feature, the one everyone talks about.
Yes. The lake. This specially built stage where they actually drive the cars into the middle of a body of water to take photographs.
Driving multi-million-pound cars into water sounds risky, crazy.
It sounds completely nuts, but apparently the stage alone cost £250,000. It's designed for exactly that.
Is there a story behind that idea?
There is. He tells this great anecdote in the source. Says he woke up at 2 a.m. with the idea for the lake. Called his son Carl immediately.
At 2 a.m., what did Carl say?
Carl apparently thought his dad was pissed, drunk.
I can imagine.
But Tom insisted. And he says now is one of the best things they ever did. Those photos are iconic. They line the walls like a history of the amazing cars they've sold.
That mix of just meticulous perfectionism, huge investment, but also these wild creative flourishes like the lake. It's a fascinating combination.
It really is. And the people coming through the doors reflect that level.
Who are we talking about? Any names mentioned?
Oh, yeah. The source mentions people like Underlog Weber, the Sultan of Brunei.
Royalty.
And huge global stars, Rod Stewart, Elton John. They've all apparently visited the office. It's that top tier of clientele.
And yet his own personal office. The source says it's surprisingly low tech.
Yeah, it's quite a contrast. No computers on his desk, just a telephone, paper, and a pen. Very old school.
In this hyper-connected world, how does that work?
Maybe it speaks to his way of operating. Direct contact, instinct, focusing on the conversation, the deal itself, not getting bogged down in emails, trusting his gut and his relationships.
Interesting. And that fits with something else he emphasizes, reinvestment.
Absolutely. He makes a point of saying that pretty much everything he's ever earned from the business, he's plowed right back into it. And he keeps doing it.
So it's not about taking chips off the table. It's about constant growth, building the empire bigger and better.
That seems to be the philosophy, which, when you look at the whole journey, the dropout, the first million, the crash, the comeback, it makes you wonder about the core principles driving it all.
What does he himself say about the keys to success based on the source?
Passion comes up again and again. He absolutely believes passion is crucial. It's what pushes you beyond normal limits in business, in life, without that real fire for it.
You wouldn't survive the setbacks, especially the big ones he faced.
Exactly. You wouldn't have the drive to rebuild from a caravan. And it connects to how he defines himself. He draws this line between an entrepreneur and a businessman.
Oh, what's the difference for him?
An entrepreneur, he says, is someone willing to risk their shirt, put it all on the line. Whereas a businessman is more cautious, calculates everything meticulously.
And he sees himself as the entrepreneur.
Clearly. The one who sees the loophole and goes for it. The one who chooses reputation over immediate cash after the crash. It's about embracing that calculated risk.
That risk tolerance seems baked into his DNA.
And, crucially, the ability to handle it when the risks don't pay off. He's really blunt about it. If you can't handle rejection, if you can't handle failure, if you can't handle making mistakes, you just won't make it, period.
They're not exceptions, they're part of the journey.
Exactly. And he also makes the point that success itself brings challenges. You get enemies, you get jealous people. That's another thing you just have to learn to navigate.
So resilience isn't just about bouncing back from failure, it's also about handling the pressures of success.
Right. And maybe the most direct piece of advice he gives, especially for younger people starting out, it's about being single-minded.
Single-minded, how so?
To be the best, he argues, you have to be intensely focused. Laser focus on your dream, on what you want to become. You have to kind of block out everything else, the distractions, the doubters, just relentless focus.
You can see how that would have been vital during the rebuilding phase, keeping that honey vision in mind.
No doubt. And finally, there's his take on money, which the source points out is a little bit paradoxical.
How so?
Well, he says, money is not everything. But then, almost in the same breath, he adds, but everywhere I go, money is everything.
Yeah, that sounds contradictory on the surface.
It does. But maybe it reflects the reality of his world. Like, maybe money isn't his personal ultimate goal or measure of happiness. But in the world of multi-million-pound supercars and billionaire clients, it's the essential language, the tool, the measure of success within that domain.
So it's not his personal why, but it's the unavoidable how of his business.
Perhaps. He understands its power and necessity in the game he plays, even if it's not the thing that truly fulfills him deep down.
So when you put it all together, it's quite a story. The kid labeled a dunce, dropping out, making $1 million, finding a loophole, losing it all when the big players ganged up.
Then hitting absolute rock bottom in a caravan.
And then, just through sheer grit, resilience, that single-minded focus, getting his hands dirty again, rebuilding an empire now worth hundreds of millions.
It really is an incredible testament to, well, defying expectations and the power of passion and just sheer determination when things go wrong.
And listening to that, especially the crash and rebuild part, it makes you think about your own life, doesn't it? We all hit walls, we all face rejection, setbacks, times when things feel impossible or when, things just go crash for reasons outside our control.
Definitely. His story is like a powerful case study in resilience. It shows it's not just some fluffy concept, it's an active choice. It's choosing to find the lesson in the pain, like he did, and not letting that pain define you, keeping that dream, that taste of honey, alive.
It really does prompt a question for yourself, listening to this. What's the one thing maybe you're holding back on trying because you're afraid of failing? Or maybe what's that one past setback that you're still letting define you or hold you back? Could that experience, that remembered lesson, actually be the key to pushing you forward towards your own version of being the best?
Yeah. Something definitely worth mulling over.